Welcome to Yehwan Song, who is joining us for this webinar series in the Lab of Creative Coding, basically live from Seoul, from South Korea. So really give a warm welcome and a silent Zoom applause to Yehwan Song.
Thanks. So yeah, I am a designer and developer currently living in Seoul, South Korea. Let's get it started. So I make a website and I code and I develop the website, and like I'm pretty sure all of us already have internet when we are young, and we kind of use it for various reasons. For example, like we kind of use it to chilling out, like we can play the game using internet, and if there's like a research project, then if we can't go to the library and stuff, then we just do some research using our internet. So it's kind of like a tool for like search and get the information from. So there are basically like various reasons of using the internet. But on the other hand, when we think about the websites these days, especially, like they have like a very similar template and very similar formats. So like I found this is kind of like a problem that even though the purpose of using the internet and the people that are using the internet are so different, they have different culture and different like a background. But even though there's like a tons of diversity, like those websites kind of follows the similar template that are created from like a huge companies or like agencies, that they kind of make this kind of template which is super easy to make and super easy to like adjust different informations. So like they kind of make this template and distribute this template to the others, and all the internet and website looks kind of similar, and I think this is the problem. So that was like a very starting point of me like doing some projects and like a researches. So like for this talk, I wish that this talk is more like suggesting or like give you some questions that you can maybe you can think twice before you are using or making a website, rather than you might kind of like agree with what I'm thinking or why am I doing this project, or you might be disagree with it or you might be agree with it. It's totally okay, but I just want this can be like more like a question, an open-ended question that you can kind of think twice. So like the website looks really similar, and I think that is the problem. And from that point, I started to do some research, and I found this kind of graph where when it comes to those technology, we tend to like focus on the improvement. So rather than like trying to make something different or trying to like make it for the different purposes or different reasons, we kind of very much focus it on like this linear shape of development, and we kind of tend to like create something improved than before. Like for example, when someone makes a new smartphone, for example, then people start to compare that from the previous one and like want to know like what is the improvement rather than like what is the difference or what is the characteristic of this new smartphone. So like
Yehwan, I think we are still on the first slide. Is that did you go forward in your presentation or?
Yeah, I already go forward.
Yeah, okay, we were wondering, so maybe you have to restart Keynote because we only saw the first slide. It kind of it was hanging there. Just
okay.
Like, let's try it again and we give you an immediate feedback.
Are you on my slide? Can you see the change?
Yeah, now here we see the change. And if you go into play, let's see if that works. Okay, we see the evolution. Yeah, now it works. It kind of hung on the first slide. Yeah, we're sorry.
But there are not like.
Yeah.
But anyway, so here, yeah. Now it
perfect.
Works, right?
Yes, we are here. Thanks.
So yeah, so we are following the similar like a linear shape of development. And what I'm trying to do is like stop doing that improvement and just think about like what we have already and think about like what can I create something different rather than better than the previous one. So like I started to make these sort of websites. So the website is basically the place where we can get the information. So rather than following the similar templates, I started to make a website that like itself represent the information that it contains. For example, this is the website that I made for ECL Rubino Better College Summer School. And this summer school have approximately like 10 years of history. And each year, students have to submit their final work, final result in a PDF form, which means that they have tons of archive. And I thought like, it might be cool if I can create some archive website for that. So I created this website in order to show the information that it contains. I like directly use this 3D cylinder on the website. So as you can see, the rounded shape of the cylinder represents the years, and the side shows the PDF of each of the students. So you can just kind of like slice the cylinder and see the PDF. If you click the PDF, see the preview of the PDF, and if you click it, then you directly go to the Google Drive and download the PDF. Or this can be another example as well. This is the website that I created for digital art net art archive from 1960 to 2000 for the Media Art Museum in Amsterdam. So this website contains two different information. Basically, this is the website to archive net art and net artists, but also at the same time, this website is to show the curatorial background story of this curatorial stories. So like, for example, there are tons of archive of the artists, but also they want to show like why did they collect it, or why did they did the exhibition with this artist, etc. So like there are front information that is the list of the artists, but also there's like a backside information that is curatorial behind story and etc. So I created a website that is rotatable. So when you enter the website, you can see like a list of the artists, but you can rotate and see the backstory of this curation. And this is the web map of this website, and also the mobile version. This is the website that I created for Future School Summer Studio, which is the part of the Venice Architecture Biennale. And since this website it contains the information about the architecture summer school, so I wanted to make something more like an architectural that contains architectural shape itself. So I came up with this idea of like architecture 3D shape. And also there are three different information that I need to show in this website, which is first is the general graphic of this summer school. And there are a Korean version of the information, the summer school description, and then there is like an English version of the description. So there are basically three different information that I need to show. So like I created a website that kind of like itself shows the 3D architectural shape. And on the there are three different bases of this 3D structure. So on the top, you can see the graphic of this summer school, and on the front, you can see the English description, and on the side, you can see the Korean description. And then the mobile. But also, as I mentioned, like we use website to get the information, but sometimes we just use it to like, sorry. We just use the website to, okay. We just use it website to like chilling out or to like kill our time. Like for example, when we create some editorial or printed stuff, then like there is some there's some like stuff that we create to share information, for example, like a books or like a leaflets. But on the other hand, we make a poster to like catch people's eyes and ears, to like attract people to advertise the event and etc. So like from that point of view, I created this website that is not like full of the information, but I think it is still like meaningful since it's kind of advertised or like attract people's eyes and ears. So from that purpose, I made some like an interactive posters. Or I sometimes connected different devices and made one poster using different devices, because I kind of always feel that flat screen is kind of make the limitation. Like when it comes to 3D, then it kind of attracts people's eyes and ears much easier and faster. Or I sometimes use sound and make like a sound interactive poster. Or I use it web camera. So it's basically it kind of record me in a real time, but I just put like a small like a time gap in those small circles. So if I move my body, then you can see like there's like a hidden letters. I love using a default web characteristic. For example, when we look at the web map, then we can soon realize that when we are zooming in or zooming out, the map itself kind of like become zooming in and zooming out, but the size of the markers remain the same. And from that point, I was able to create this sort of website, which is called Rainbow Behind Clouds. Or I just kind of change the shape of the scroll bar. This project is called Mountain Everest scroll bar because the scroll bar shape follows the Mountain Everest shape of the Mountain Everest. And so like I did those kind of like a trial to make something different rather than make something more improved, and kind of like focus on the purpose of the website rather than following the same templates. And from that perspective, I was able to like move forward and created this series called Anti-User Friendly. I'm just gonna read the description that I wrote when I create this anti-user friendly pieces. The concept of user-friendliness focuses on the ease of use above all else. In order to achieve this, most websites use standardized design and interface conventions that don't require the user to learn how to use a new interface. Instead, users repeat the behavior that they trained to do. This automatic repetition of action causes people to lose their content awareness. In anti-user friendly, I construct hard-to-use devices and interfaces in order to challenge the notion of user-friendliness and bring back content awareness. The piece creates a situation in which users need to explore and learn before they can use the interfaces. Through this process, users are given an opportunity to become conscious again in a form of self-care. So from that perspective, I created some pieces. So this one is called Touch My Four Fingertip. And in order to activate this website, you need to touch your four fingertip on the top of the four fingertip on the screen. And then the content shows below your fingers. So in order to see the content, you have to like rotate your phone like this way. Or sometimes use web cache. Web cache is something that when you enter the website, then the browser saves the part of the piece of the information from the website. So then when user enter the same website again and again, the browser doesn't have to download all the information from the server, since it saves some part of the information already in the browser, and that piece of the information is called cache. And since it's saved in the browser, even though there's no Wi-Fi connection, it can still load some part of the information. And from that point, I found it's really interesting that the website is still working even though there's no internet connection. So I created this website. Each X shape in the website are different, have different file names and are different axes. And some of them I forced them to save as a cache, and some of them are not saved as a cache. So if when there's like an internet connection, then it shows the whole all the access, so it kind of shows like a patterns. But if I turn off the Wi-Fi, then the only cached access are remains, so it shows the hidden letters in there. And this is the mobile version. I also think that I also feel like really skeptical about this responsive design. So like the concept of it is like kind of like remain keeping the same design even though the screen ratio changes. So even though we enter the website using our desktop or using our iPad, iPod, or I using our iPad or iPhone, the website still need to like keep the same design. It's the concept of responsive design. And I think that kind of doesn't really make sense because like the screen ratio is different and the way people use these devices is different. And maybe the environment that people use these devices might be different. But like keeping the same design doesn't really make sense. Like sometimes it is needed, but like sometimes like this kind of concept kind of blocks the possibility that different devices can have, or possibility that we can explore using these devices. So I created this website called Very Responsive in order to criticize that responsive design. And also, sorry. And also this is the website that I created for Typojanchi, which is the typography festival taking place in Seoul, South Korea. And in order to make this website, I first created this very basic website with the information of the biennial. I created same website 256 times. The only difference is that the way they respond to the change of the screen ratio is different. So when in certain ratio, it looks all the same, but if I change the screen ratio, the way it reacts is different. And then I slice each of those websites into small cube, and we collected these cubes into and made a one huge website. So in certain ratio, it looks like the same, like a general website. But if I change the screen ratio, it looks like a scattered because they have different responsiveness. Again, responsive design, I think it kind of blocks the possibility that we can kind of explore using different devices. For example, when we use website using our desktop, we use these sort of tools, which is kind of keyboard and the mouse. When you look at these devices, you can soon realize that it is composed of tons of buttons, right? And buttons are like either you press it or you are not pressing it, which means it receives true or false for you. So when you look at the website, since we are using those devices to use the website, you can see that the website is composed of tons of buttons as well. But these days we use so many devices to use website. For example, we use iPad, this pad, and mobile devices as well. And they have, instead of those buttons, they have this touch screen. And this touch screen actually can receive various information rather than press or not pressing it. You can kind of like drag it. You can use your two fingers and kind of zooming in, zooming out. There are so many interactions that you can do using this touch screen. And also, I think that the emotional value of this touch is so important as well. Like you can just think that like a mobile website is a smaller version of desktop website, because like the fact that you are using your fingertip and directly touch the image on the screen is so emotionally so powerful. So from that point, I created this website this summer in 2020. This is called The Way We Touch Each Other in 2020. And that time was the time when COVID-19 became really extreme in Korea as well. So we have to like stay in our room without like meeting people in person. So I created this website, kind of felt like this is really funny because like when like those touch devices and touch screen became really popular since like 5 years ago-ish. And then like in 2020, we cannot touch each other in person. So like, I think that's kind of like really funny, as if someone already know that this gonna happen in 2020 and force people to develop these touch devices because like you cannot touch each other in person in the future. So anyway, from that perspective, I created this website. And I started to think about like how we use our fingers in our daily life, and what can I create using this screen touch screen. For example, we use our fingers to point something out over here, or when we kind of want to express our feelings, but when we can't express our feeling using our words, we actively use our finger, right? Because it's like one of the most delicate part of our body. Among that, what really like caught my eyes and like caught my emotions was this interaction, which is like using our finger and like walking on the screen on the surface. So I thought like I need to create something that supports this interaction. So I made this website called Today I Walked. So like, as you can see, the website is there to support this interaction. So it doesn't contain any information, but still like it is there to like support. And it has its own value, I believe. And that was started as my personal project. But after then, I was able to work this, I was able to develop this with the museum in Korea, because I collaborated this project with the artist called Nakim in Korea. She had this like a huge exhibition planned in Korea, but like because of rapid increase of COVID-19 patient, all the art museum and stuff has to shut down. So like we decided to make some like exhibition room in mobile, and we kind of ended up making this website. So like this exhibition uses like a large space, and she placed her artwork here and there, and that's kind of like a spatial value is very important in this exhibition. So I thought like it might be interesting if I can kind of like use this interior to the website and add this walking interaction. And I just added like an extra information that people can click and see the list of the artworks. And this is the image that my friend sent me after this. Like, this is your next level. And I did like many different researches and think about like, what can I do using this touch interaction to make something different? And this is not my project, but this really caught my eyes. Oh, this is the project by studio called CWNT based in New York. And they created this application that is only focused on comb the grass. So like we use our finger to comb our hair, and from that perspective, they kind of able to create this application. Or I started to think about like whenever I do things using my finger, I kind of like additionally think about like what can I create using that interaction. For example, we use our finger to we sometimes dip our finger into sauce jar, etc. And I was able to create this website. I connected two different websites into using two different devices. This is called Aquarium, and on the top side you can see the surface of the ocean, and on the right side you can see the under the sea view of the ocean, and you can see like if I touch the surface of the ocean, you can see the virtual fingers appears on the side view. Or like there are so many like different way we use our finger. For example, like as you can see, we use our finger to like send a message secretly. And that was like an inspiration of this project as well. And we use our fingers to rotate the object. And I was able to create this sort of like an interactive poster using that interaction. Or this can be another example for this as well. Or like when we focus on the characteristic of each devices that shows the website, there are so many different information. For example, there is like a gyro sensor that I can use and make some sort of like an interactive poster again. Or for this project, it's kind of like a failure. So, because like I thought like maybe I can create something like a 3D book, but like can be readable, like can be functioning as well. But that one doesn't really work well. But I think itself is kind of like representable, kind of like can be like a motion poster as well. And definitely we use our finger to draw something on the surface. So this is actually the mobile version of Mountain Everest scroll bar. So in this website, you can actually, before you scroll, you can actually draw the shapes of the scroll, and then the like a document follows that scroll like a shape. And we hide something using our finger. This is the same series of the previous example, but I actually connected like 5-6 devices for this project. And as you can see, there is like on the small screen, you can see the sun. So if I hide the sun using my finger, then the whole screen become dark because the sun is hidden from your hand. And when you like release the sun, then all the screen return back to its original state. And like when we focus on the finger, then there are so many shapes that we can kind of inspire by. For example, like when we press like a corner of the paper, then we can see these sort of shapes. And I was able to create this poster that kind of represent the shape of this like distorted or those papers. Or I'm not really sure if this is actually exists or not, but like we use our finger to measure our health and measure our healthiness or measure our blood pressure. So there can be something that we can create using this characteristic as well too. This can be like a really cheesy video, but I think it might be good to share. So you can, if you are using desktop, you can use your finger and press the screen on the center. Sound is not working.
Unfortunately, we can't hear it, but maybe you can just drop us the link in the chat, or we can take a look later. Yeah.
I will do that later. That's all. So, and then we can use the camera, web camera or mobile camera to like explore further. So like generally my project is focusing on the different approach using websites, because like from basically I think though there are so many different purpose that we are using the website, and when we focus on those purpose and when we focus on the information that it contains, there are so many examples or so many different things that we can create. And also if we use our website to attract people's eyes and ears, then we can create some different websites that are purely focused on those icon poster-ish attraction. And in order to do that, we can focus on the functionality of those different devices. Yeah. This is all. I think I finished it too early, right?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much for this great collection of projects you did, and for your thoughts. I think we all kind of were very much inspired also seeing these kind of different ways of kind of like playing or like approaching interface technology in a very playful way, and also by actually by using this concept of anti-user friendliness, by actually exposing the the inner values of the way we interact with technology. So actually it's kind of like revealing the inner guts of the things we're using on an everyday basis, and really try and, it's like almost like an eye opener to, it's like for people like, okay, can we stop and reflect a bit more of what we are doing all the time with our thumbs while scrolling. So I think thank you so much for this kind of, for this huge variety of projects you've shown us. I think we can start a Q&A session, and maybe I'm gonna jump into, I have like actually two questions more or less, or like one is more like a remark. I think you also, even though you haven't named it, but I guess the idea of like a brutalist websites is or like the concept of brutalist website is known to you. And I think what is your standpoint in terms of this kind of the idea of like a brutalist website? Because also recently I've seen that I think a year ago, basically the guy who collected this idea like of brutalist web, he stopped the archive because he said the brutalists, the idea of brutalist design became mainstream. It arrived in mainstream since like the big brands also used this kind of started to adopt these strategies of like playing with huge fonts, or like with weird like out of the kind of template culture websites. So would you consider yourself being part of the movement, or is your approach is it more like towards your, maybe you could even name it like that you have like an anti-user friendliness manifesto or like something? Is it like, I guess there are some overlaps, but maybe it would be interesting to hear what your thoughts are on this.
So the concept of brutalist website, or the concept, or like there are tons of examples regarding using. There are like a lot of net arts, which is called net art movement, and there are they did like so many different like experiments using web, and I love them, and I wish I could be like another like a movement of that net art movement in 2020s, because like
you
those
would wish
movements were,
to live in the 90s, right? So we could
yeah,
go back.
right.
Because
I love
it's true.
90s.
I also, I'm a big fan of net art, and then you see what they did
Yeah,
in the 90s, like really by exploring, just playing with basic HTML structures.
right,
They
right, right.
already did. So yeah, it was very pioneer work,
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, right. And when you take a look at them, like you can soon realize that people we are doing these days is kind of really similar to what they are doing. And you might feel like really frustrated because like you are just repeating the past. But anyways, I think that that approach is more like the genuine approach using this website, because like before we have those huge companies like conquer this template world. It was possible in 90s because like when people first started to use internet and kind of like they started to understand the internet, and from that perspective they were able to like make those kind of brutalist websites. But after then, when people kind of get used to this internet and they are not like super focused on the web or internet itself and kind of focused on the other like a publication, and kind of like with what they are doing is kind of like bringing that layout and just adapt that layout to the internet, which is not the best way to use this function or the best way to use this platform, I guess. So I think that the Brutalist website, which is called Brutalist, is not like, it's more like a genuine approach and more like an honest approach using this web platform. So I think that is maybe like a more better solution using this website, I guess. And I think that, and also I think that this like a movement is kind of like repeats itself, right? So there was like a huge movement using NetArt for Brutalist website in 1990s, but like for a while we are not focusing on the web, and we are just focusing on the like improvement of technology. But after that, like these days, I think, and I feel like the people are starting to use and kind of explore this net platform these days. So I think I believe there will be another movement called NetArt in 2020s soon.
Yeah, we were waiting for the renaissance of NetArt.
Right.
Exactly.
But that cannot, yeah, right.
And as my second question was, I mean, you showed us really a huge variety of projects. Some of them were also like kind of interacting with an archive, like the project with the summer school and the project for the architectural biennale. And so I was wondering how does it, like your collaboration, how do they look like if you work with some front-end engineers, or do you do do you build the prototypes yourself and then like try to outsource it or like to give it to someone? Because I think, I mean, what is really striking in your works is obviously you're not just designing it and in a static program, and because it's very much about the interaction. So you do some sort of like prototyping, I guess, with technology. But to what extent do you need to collaborate, or you require an external engineer, and how does usually a collaboration like this look like?
So I basically work alone in most cases, and I do from the very beginning, like making a concept to designing it and develop it. Like that, I kind of do all projects, most of the cases, and I kind of work all of them. Like I don't really collaborate in most cases, but I just collaborate in case there are so many works that I have to handle and I need some hands, then I collaborate. But that doesn't mean that like I need some developer because like I don't know how to develop it. That is not in my case. So like I think I value the fact that I know code, and I just genuinely believe that I was able to create this because I know how to develop it. So like the knowledge of web development kind of affected me to create this in a large part. So yeah, I think so like I think like maybe I can collaborate in the future, but that doesn't mean that I will stop like learning this code and technology, I guess. And like if you look closer to the website that I've made, you soon can realize that I use like very little amount of libraries, and I don't really use like like React or those type of frameworks, because I want to keep my website like technologically really simple. It looks like a really like complicated website, but if you look at the code, then there's like a really small amount of deep libraries, and I want to like keep it like really simple and like light as much as possible. So then I don't really need to focus on the technology, but like I can control it rather than like I use it this library, so maybe I can use this function, but I don't really understand the function kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's also very, very well shown in your own personal website, which takes the information just from a Google Sheets, so which you export, I guess, as a CSV file or something. So there, you don't need to have like a content management system like WordPress or something that is kind of super huge and large and bulky to install and to maintain. But basically, yeah, I mean, a content management system is nothing else than just like a table of entries which you fill up with text or links. So, and I think that's a really nice example also, like how you can, just like kind of use some ready-made stuff for making the backend to work, because we just want to have it to work just so it kind of is usable, but not spend too much energy, let's say, into the architecture of the database design, or like a framework like Angular, React, where you where you could like spend just a day of like getting to know the framework and to install it, and to also basically it's pretty hard also to maintain like huge projects in React. So I think your personal website is a very good example also, that where you can just pull up data from an external source. So I think maybe our students also have some questions, so we can open up the circle. And actually, I have one question from the chat. I will just read it through. So, what studies did you do? How did you manage to gather so much technical knowledge and so strong concepts at the same time?
I mean, I wanted to talk about that as well too. So my background was I majored graphic design when I was university. I was also majored graphic design when I was in high school. So I'm like a really like an artistic person, but at the same time I love mathematics and science, and my whole family are into there. So like I was able to learn how to like I just generally understand how this computer works and how those like mathematics works, or how can I, for example, how can I draw the circle using computer? I just know that because of my family. But for a while, because my background is graphic design and I didn't really officially learn how to code, but I just learned code using through YouTube and etc. because there are some stuff that I want to make. But like I kind of feel like my knowledge is very basic and very like scratchy. So like I kind of feel like I was refused to say like I know code, because I don't really feel like I know code at all, because even though I can create a website, it's kind of like a really buggy. And I think I thought like those developers know something super different than me. And I was really afraid of saying things like I know how to develop. But from one point, and then like after a while, after I do some research and learn code using YouTube by myself, and I went to the school called Poetic Computation in New York, because like I kind of felt like I need to learn code from very basic. And there I realized that like developers, like the code is not something that is like a language that you can't learn, the language that is like super different from your like a real life. So like I was able to learn in school for poetic computation is that like code is something that you can just use whenever you want to use it, and you can just kind of like distort it as the way you want if you know how to use that. So like I understand that like many graphic design students who want to learn code kind of like afraid of learning code, because like that code is kind of like something that is super hard to learn, but that is not true. You can just start using YouTube and etc. Then it's really easy to learn, and it's really like catching the information like from the basic, and just just the step by step, and you can soon realize that you can create some website without any like limitation, I guess.
Which brings me to another question. You mentioned the School for Poetic Computation in New York. And also there was one question from the chat. So do you have any advices, books, resources you could suggest to us, to the students, to get starting into doing this magic? And maybe one answer would be, I think the entire P5GS community is something, I guess, where you can draw a lot of information or like inspiration resources, but maybe do you have some other magical resources you want to share with us?
I don't have any magical resource, to be honest, and I really learn from YouTube and like Stack Overflow, and or whenever I want to like do something, then I just kind of Google it, and there is already like geniuses who already answered using it, and I just copy paste that code and kind of like change it on my own. And from repetitively doing that, I kind of found myself better using this code. But like what I learned in School for Poetic Computation is that they don't, I mean, some of them teaches us code line by line, but they were more focused on those algorithms, like algorithms from mathematics or algorithm from the nature. And they kind of like one, for example, like there is like an algorithm called Game of Life. Life of Game of Life. So like they were more focused on this, like on algorithms and kind of like, am I doing right?
It's it's the idea of like a basic cellular automata where you have like very basic rules, like one cell can only survive if it has like surrounding neighbors, but if there are too many of them, the cell will die, and so it kind of naturally grows or behaves in an unpredictable way.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, here
so
are the
they
rules.
Were more, right. So they were more focused on the algorithms, and that can be a great starting point as well. I didn't start it from here, but I think many like those like the net artists started from these algorithms, and I think this can be like a great approach as well too.
And another question was, which are the tools you use to build a website? Do you work with specific libraries, I don't know, for the touch recognition, or do you have well, you said you try to avoid big frameworks, but and libraries, but what is your tool? How does your tools box look like? And if you have some useful tutorials or like you want to share with the students, they would be interested.
So the thing is that I don't really use any, like obviously I use some like libraries called Metro.js to do things like this, kind of like gravity stuff. Or obviously like sound effect comes from library and stuff like that. But like I don't really use library or framework at all.
So you write most of this stuff is then vanilla JavaScript, or do you use P5GS sometimes for sketching or like also in production?
I just use jQuery, and that's
jQuery,
all. Yeah. Because I think that I just really hate those like layers. Maybe I'm not that patient enough to learn P5.js or any other libraries, but I think, yeah, I started from here, but like I do know that those library kind of like enable me to do something like that is kind of impossible for me to do, like from my own side. For example, like 3JS kind of enable me to like put the 3D object into the web. That is something that I really need to use library, for example. So in case I'm not like refusing libraries, I believe that the library can support your work really well. But So far I try to, or I kind of like naturally build from scratch by my own instead of using libraries.
So basically, for the finger walking, you that's really interesting. You wrote kind of an algorithm that make kind of gait like GAIT gait recognition for like the movement. When basically, I guess you have to have this kind of finger movement with some like offset or distance between the fingers to in order to walk forward, right? I mean, can you walk backward? Can you do a moonwalk on the?
Walk backward. And the tricky part of this two touch position is that like devices cannot recognize the differences between two touch. So if you are touching two finger on the screen, then it just recognize there is like a two finger. But devices cannot know like the one finger is this one and then the other one is this one. Am I make sense? So if you stop touching the screen touch the screen using only one finger, then it starts to recognize that the user is touching only one finger instead of like user is touching finger one or finger two. Am I make sense? So it cannot like recognize finger one, finger two, but it just can recognize two position. So that was like a really tricky point, and this really actually took lots of time to figure out how to like make this interaction possible using these devices. I just know that like devices can recognize more than one finger since we are using devices using our two finger to zoom stuff in or out. So from that point, I kind of felt like I can create it, but it's really tricky, but I can't create it. So it took like millions of time, but yeah, I built it by my own.
Amazing. I wonder if there are other questions from our students. I maybe just an anecdote, or when I saw the slide 48 with the fingers, actually in Lausanne, close to Geneva, you have a museum which is dedicated to the hand. So it's really it's actually part of the hospital because it's a university hospital, and they have a museum space that is absolutely dedicated to the hand, like how the hand shaped the way the tools we use, and they have different topics, but it's all around what we're doing with hands. So I think it's something, kind of we kind of, not that we tend to forget, I mean, the importance of hands, but I mean, like for our everyday actions and interactions, they're pretty useful and pretty complicated matter also. And the funny thing is true. I mean, the computer very much sees us from his perspective, like the eye and the thumb, right? I mean, like it's these two things that we are mostly interacting with. But what is really beautiful in your work is that basically you open up this entire space, and like, it can be two fingers, it can be gestures that you do, not like the traditional pinch and zoom things, but really like playing with all 10 fingers. There was one specific question. Actually, I also wondered very much about it because I've never seen this in any form of web development. So for the scroll bar, the Everest scroll bar, could you just briefly explain how did you manage to modify it? It's obviously it's something that is inherited from the browser, so I guess you have to kind of disable the standard display of it. But then, like, how do you make that it looks like this? Is it like kind of SVG path and some JavaScript magic behind, or?
Yeah, it's a SVG. It's an image actually. I just hide the default scroll bar, and it's just the image on here. So the like a shape kind of like it's kind of frames. Then you scroll down, then the image is kind of like it's like a video that like place when you scroll down, and then the shape, it kind of like follows that JSON information in there. So it's a totally fake.
Yeah, that's great. No, but basically, so the path is a transparent PNG, for example, and the scroll bar itself, it would be, is it like an SVG that where you can do this kind of trick with offset, dash offset or something, so that it looks like it moves?
Right.
Then one second, I'm just going through the chat. Do you use the same tools to create the websites for the phone? Maybe Alejandra, I'm not sure if I get it. What do you want to?
Yes, sorry, I was wondering, since you have these amazing interactions with the touch in the screen phones and everything, if you also use jQuery to do this, or you use any other specific tools to do these interactions with the touch screen?
I use jQuery, so yeah, it's like basically I just use jQuery. But these days, since I created too much of this, I kind of have my own library, and I wish I can like make it readable in the future and can kind of like make an official library in the future. But yeah, I just basically work with jQuery on mobile websites as well.
Thank you.
And I think we still have a little bit of room for another question. How do you build 3D look-like environments in a 2D interface? So maybe it's, I guess it's more for the project of the summer school and for the architectural biennale. I guess there you have like the notion of a 3D space. Is it, are you really using kind of 3D, or is it working with CSS transformations like skew and rotate? I guess I don't know what can you.
So this one is CSS transformation, and this is I use it 3JS. So like as you can see, like this square format comes from CSS transformation. It's a div, and I just made like if there's like a one website, one basic website, then I made a code that kind of clones this website into like actually like 9 different sites, because like there are 3 layers in one site, and kind of like this like hidden the rest of the like rest site, and just made it like crop the website into small pieces and made it. So this is like a 3D transformation. And that one is obviously 3JS, because I can't make some cylinder using 3D transformation at least for now.
So the textures are basically iframes, or how is the content embedded?
In this website, right?
Yeah.
This is just an image.
Okay. Okay.
So I kind of love that if I only focus on the CSS and basic jQuery, then it's more controllable. So I can put like an information here as well, etc. That's like maybe why I kind of focus on the basic technology.
No, it's beautiful. It's beautiful how you appropriate this kind of recent. Yeah, I mean it's not so recent, but kind of modern web technology. I sometimes used to work also with kind of web developers, like really some kind of backend engineers and some for projects. And I think if I would show them something like this, they would say like, "Oh no, it's too complicated. It's so difficult to make something, you know." But because they always have this approach of like building something like very solid, very optimized, and obviously, I mean, it's not rotating, maybe super fluid, but it's not, that's not the point, right? And it's so hard, I think, sometimes to discuss it with engineers, because they always see they see very much always focus on the problems and like solving the problems instead of like having, you know, also like just an interesting interaction with an environment where obviously sometimes there could be glitches, but it doesn't matter so much. So it shouldn't be in the forefront of when you're dealing with such things. Oh yeah, sorry, there was just one question, but it doesn't rotate fluid for, is there a particular reason? Can it be optimized? I guess it will optimize with the machine which you're browsing with, if it uses the graphic card.
Yeah, right. So optimization on my website is not like my website is not like doesn't like give any best performance at all. Any kind of like ruins that in that perspective. So like I think that like those thing that I am more focused on is creating something different rather than like focusing on the optimization. So as I mentioned, this can be a question as well, but I believe like for me, what we need in this point of view, in this like in this moment is that like being aware that the websites are all the same, since we are too much focused on the fast and optimization. So I kind of feel like I can create this even though this doesn't give the best performance. And I believe that is the right direction, but it depends on the perspective, I guess, and purpose of the website.
Okay, so let's have a last round of applause if there are no questions coming anymore into the chat, or yeah, I think we are starting the applause round. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Also for this highly engaging questions. I think it shows that there is some, that you opened up lots of interesting perspectives on how to deal with this technology. It was amazing. Thank you. I'm just rereading the chat windows, and there are some emojicon hearts flying in as well. So thank you so much.